ATV-TALK, the podcast. Sit down with your host industry professional, Leonard Duncan, as the men and women from the ATV world bring their behind-the-scenes stories to life. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And remember, dream big. It could be your story one day.
Brought to you by Take Two Custom Tees, screen printing experience that is dedicated to quality and customer service every time.
Hi, Adrienne. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for taking some time out to come and sit with us at ATV-TALK. We want to hear a little bit about your story. I read a little bit about your bio, and I think you have an amazing little backstory there that not many people are going to know about.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride. ATV racing was a wild ride, and my exit from ATV racing was a wild ride as well. So,
Well, let's go back in time a little bit, and you can start and tell everybody how did all this get started, and where did you get into the competitive portion of racing?
I got into it because of my dad. He raced trucks in Best in the Desert and Score. So I pretty much grew up down in Baja in San Felipe. That's where I started riding when I was 4 years old. And my dad and I kind of stumbled upon motocross racing when I think I was 11 or 12. And it took my mom quite some time to say yes to us actually lining up behind a gate. But once she did, we were wide open from there, so to speak. So, I started at a young age.
That's awesome. You know, most of the people that I speak to, some start very old, but most of us are starting just out of diapers.
Yeah, it's crazy. I see kids nowadays that are, 3 years old, 4 years old out on a racetrack. And it's crazy to think about. I have a 3-year-old now, and I couldn't imagine, being lined up behind a gate with her. So, but yeah, it seems like that's almost what it takes nowadays is to have so many years of experience under your belt at such a young age. So it's impressive to see.
Did you get to race any Baja or any of the Best in the Desert stuff on an ATV, or was it all motocross for you?
I did one Best in the Desert race. It was the Vegas 200 when that was still a race. I was 14 years old when I did that. It has been my lifelong dream to do Baja, but it's funny because I followed in my father's footsteps, and entered in off-road racing, but he would never support me racing in Baja. I'm his little girl. It's dangerous down there. So he didn't necessarily support that. But I did get to race outside of motocross. I did some enduro stuff in Canada and France, down in South America. So I did get to dabble in some other types of racing as well.
What was it like in South America for you?
It was amazing. They are so into their racing down there. The spectators were wild, and they would come in by the thousands just to see, a single enduro race for a couple hours. Very nice people. Just a beautiful, beautiful place to go. So it was a great experience for me.
That's awesome. I had a good experience the few times I've got to go down there for the Dakar.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh gosh, I would love to be able to do that.
It's quite an undertaking. The training that you have to go in to learn how to navigate is one thing, but then the physical training you need to go through and the team that you have to put together to do it is pretty intense.
Yeah, I think that's the part for me that I would love to be a part of is just that race prep, the months and years in some cases leading up to those races, just knowing what to do to prep yourself physically, getting the team together, getting the parts together, the bike. And like you said, learning how to navigate. It just seems like a totally different world, but so much goes into it. And that's so impressive to me.
It is pretty impressive, but let's get back on track here and talk about you. And you mentioned that you started racing in Southern California. I'm assuming Glen Helen was one of the big spots because that's one of the biggest places to race in Southern California here.
Yeah. I started at Glen Helen, actually on the vet track, or at the time it was called the REM track. And then, that was August 3rd, 2003. And it was game on from there.
Never looked back, huh?
Never looked back. Yeah.
Wow. So, what were you riding in 2003? What was the machine of choice?
It was a Honda 400EX, and I had a slip-on White Brothers exhaust with ITP whole shot tires, and I thought that thing was a rocket ship. Like, it was completely raced out, and little did I know I had the most stock bike of us all. So, but at the time it worked for me. I was in love with that bike. It was bright yellow. My numbers were made out of electrical tape. It was, now looking back at it now, I laugh at it, but at the time, man, I thought I had it all together.
Well, that's what it's all about. You don't you don't know what you don't know until you get there.
Absolutely. Yep.
And, I've been doing this a long time and I still don't know anything.
You probably know way more than I do. I know I've seen the name Duncan Racing around ever since, even before I started. So I know you've had your fair share of racing.
Yeah, it's in our blood. And I mean, our dad had us at the racetrack when we were infants, and it's just something that's in our family that we've always done. It's just, you just go to the races on Sunday.
Yeah. I think racing is just kind of one of those things where once you get into it, you never really get out of it fully. My life has changed so much. Like I said, I have a kid now. I have a family, I got a job, but I still always find those little ways to dive back. And I find myself at works races out here in Arizona or in California, and constantly flipping through and finding it on TV or looking it up on social media. It's just a part of my life that I don't think I can ever fully walk away from.
Well, yeah, it's part of who you are and who you were, and some of the achievements that you'll have in your life will all relate back to lessons learned when you were racing.
Yep, absolutely. It's like you said, it's a lot of who I am is because of racing, and the people that I've met. We've met some amazing people throughout our years at the racetrack. Some of the best people I know, we met right there at the starting gate. So, it will always be, a part of my story and a very big part of my life for sure.
So let's delve into we're at Glen Helen. We're racing. We've evolved from the 400EX, I'm assuming, into a 450. And we decide that, hey, Southern California just isn't enough. I gotta do something else.
Yeah. We had been doing it was at the time ITP quad cross, as you probably remember. And I think it was right before I turned 16, we started seeing stuff on the internet about nationals and seeing it in magazines and all kinds of stuff. And it just kind of piqued our interest. And, we knew what we were capable of on the West Coast, but we were just so curious of how we would really stack up against the best in the nation. And, I don't even remember the conversation that was had. I think my mom and dad probably had that conversation behind my back, but we eventually landed on, hey, we're going to go to Gatorback. We're going to go to Florida, and we're going to give nationals a shot, see where we stack up. So we headed out there from California. Took us a few days. It was just my dad and I in our little F-250 with our 32-foot Weekend Warrior. And I want to say we placed second that weekend. And then immediately after, we went to Etchicounty, Georgia, and raced at that racetrack. I want to say we took second again there. And we realized, like, hey, we can do this. We can kind of run on the national level, and still had a lot to learn. It was a very different world from what I knew back on the West Coast, but I knew that it was something that we wanted to dive in head first with. And my parents were all on board. My mom was back in California supporting it financially, and my dad became my driver, my mechanic, my cook, my trainer, my biggest supporter. And it was game on from there.
And did you guys do that first year? Did you do the whole series, or did you come back, collect yourself, and go back and attack it the next season?
No, we did the whole series at that point. That was in 2006. So after Etchicounty, we did go back to California to regroup. decided that California wasn't necessarily the place to be anymore. My family uprooted and moved to Arizona. Arizona is much cheaper than Cali, so my dad was actually able to retire. And my poor mom, 2 days after we moved in May of 2006 to Arizona, my mom was left to unpack the entire house by herself. We're 30 miles outside of Phoenix in the middle of nowhere on this little dirt lot. My mom's, fighting off scorpions and, and everything that comes with Arizona, monsoons. And my dad and I got back in the truck, hooked up the trailer, headed to Michigan on Mother's Day weekend. And we did not come home for 6 or 7 months. We stayed on the road and finished the national series for that year. So
That's quite an experience.
Yeah.
You were homeschooled?
I did. I got homeschooled right after that. When we came back from Georgia, we made the decision. I was like, look, I can't go to school in California and race nationals. It just doesn't work. So my mom thankfully enrolled me in homeschool. And when we went on the road, I had my laptop, I had my books, and yeah, we were all in.
So traveling on the road, this is an experience that, I'm a seasoned veteran and I have never got that. I've never got to travel on the road for the whole year and be away from home 6 or 8 months. I was always flying back and forth or driving.
Yeah.
So I never got that experience. That's pretty awesome.
It was great. I mean, like I said, we met so many people, and I grew up in Southern California. Like I said, I was down in Baja a lot, but I really never traveled, far outside of California before. So it was, in some cases, it was a culture shock for me. But it was a huge learning experience. Just being able to see, so many different places outside of this sheltered little life that I lived in Southern California. It was an experience of a lifetime. I mean, I try to explain it to people, and, if you haven't done that or you don't know what it's like, it's just hard to put it into words. But I think, it made my dad and I bond so much too. To this day, I'm attached to his hip. He actually just left my house right now. He came over to see my daughter, but just the experiences that we had together is something that, only the two of us can really talk about, because, it was just the two of us that were there. We lived it and breathed it every single day. So that's a time in my life that I have zero regrets from that. And, that's my favorite part of the story right there.
That's pretty awesome. I have 3 daughters, and my oldest daughter I got to coach through her younger years in softball when I wasn't going to the races. And my other 2 daughters I didn't get till they were adults. So I don't have the same kind of bonding experiences with them. We try, and that's part of what we're doing here with ATV-TALK is a developmental process that my son Danny and my 2 daughters Valeria and Paula are kind of my sounding board, my backup, my it's okay, don't worry about it. This is social media. It's okay. We understand you don't understand it. We do. Don't worry. You just do the things you do, and we'll help you with the rest of it. And
absolutely.
So I get the father-daughter or the father relationship with his children. I have 6 grandkids, 5 of them boys. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and, even outside of my dad and I's relationship, just the families that we've met at the racetrack, how invested these parents are in their kids' future and racing and what they're doing. It was really cool to be around. We are very big on family. I'm very close to my sister, very close to my mom, even my boyfriend's family. I'm just all about family, and being able to just surround yourself with people that have that same idea, and they value family the same way. It made the experience that much better. So.
That's the one thing I love about the ATV industry. Your family away from family.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, family definitely grew when we hit the road. Those are relationships and people that, I'll talk to, till the day I die. Those are relationships that I value. So
that's awesome. So where did you end up at in the 2006 season? What was your final number?
We won that season.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. When we hit the road after the move to Arizona, our first race back was Mother's Day weekend at Red Bud in Michigan. And that was our first win of the season. And that kicked off a 5-race win streak. So that was a really fun time. So Dad was very happy. Spirits were high. We were hitting Dairy Queen on the way home from every race just to celebrate the win. It was a good little win streak.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many years total did you race back east?
Back east, I raced 6 years back east, from 2006 to 2012.
And did you back up that championship in 7?
I did not. I moved up. So my championship in 2006 was in the amateur class.
Okay.
And then in 2007, I moved up to the women's pro class. And so different dynamic there. Much more aggressive. The girls are stronger, faster, smarter. And I realized that I had a lot more learning to do. It wasn't just about holding the throttle wide open anymore. You know, these girls are smart. They're picking good lines. They're passing, constantly. They're setting you up in every single corner. It's not about who can jump the furthest and who can enter the corner the fastest. It was definitely a mental game at that point. So racing changed for me in that year. I found myself crashing a lot, blowing berms, coming up short on jumps, and, hurting ribs and stuff like that. And I had to slow down before I could go fast again. So it was a different world when I moved up, for sure.
It's a huge psychological game that every racer goes through when they make when they make that step up. If you compare lap times the year before, well, I'm fast enough. I could have placed in the top 3 consistently, but that's not what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, gosh, it was impressive, to line up. First of all, it was intimidating as hell to line up with those girls, that I had idolized, since I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So to be lined up at the gate next to them, and again, they've been in it, since I was born. They've been in racing longer than I had been alive. And, they knew about bike setup and how they wanted their suspension tuned. And I was like, wait, I don't know any of this, and it was a wake up call. But yeah, it changed the game for me big time.
Do you remember who you raced against?
Angela Moore. And I remember the first time lining up with her, I was scared out of my mind. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but she was just a badass in every way. And
she still is.
Yeah, she still is, absolutely. And I will never forget the first day lining up with her. I mean, I was just shaking uncontrollably on my boots.
Yeah, because we got her to come out to the West Coast.
Yeah,
and she did some works races and won. I'm not even sure how many works championships after she stopped racing at the Nationals. Yeah,
I really don't think there's anything, on a quad that she can't do. I know she went out and raced a few weeks ago, and I want to say she had been off the bike for 12 years or something like that. And I'm like, geez, I've been away from it for just a handful of years. I couldn't imagine throwing my leg over a bike and even being competitive anymore. The moto muscles are gone. My hand-eye coordination is gone. And for her to get out there and still be able to do it, I'm like, man, you're still a badass. Like, it's just so impressive.
I remember her when she was one of the little kids.
Yeah.
Playing at the track.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, you talk about racing being in your blood. Like, she's a true ambassador of the sport. For me, when I think about women's ATV racing, she's the first person that comes to mind.
Wow. So did she was gone before you ended your time there?
Yes.
Because if you stayed till 12, and she was already on the West Coast by that time.
Yeah, she was. I got to race with her a few times in 2007, and that I want to say that was it for me with nationals as far as racing with Angela. So I unfortunately, never got the opportunity to actually race with her very long. But the times I did, she smoked my ass.
She beat a lot of the boys too. So
She did. Yeah. I watched it live at Glen Helen. I watched her just blow right past them going up Mount St. Helens. And I was one of those little kids in the stands, just, screaming. 'Cause here's this girl, ponytail flying out the back of the helmet, just waxing the guys. And I'm like, that's it right there. That's amazing.
Yes. I've been trying to get her on the show. She's got some, I think some hangups about being in front of the camera or behind the mic. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
For sure. Absolutely.
So out of your 2007, we transfer into 2008.
Mm-hmm.
We've brushed ourselves off. We've gotten back up. I'm assuming you changed your training program and intensified that, as well as learning more. Hey, I got to work on my shocks. I got to have this kind of power. I got to do this. So how did the 2008 season roll in for you?
2008, 2009, 2010 were a blur for me. I still remember it just being a huge learning curve. Gosh, I don't even remember where I stacked up. I know I didn't win. That's for sure. So, but it was still a huge learning experience. There were girls coming into the mix that had moved up from amateur that, were super competitive. I think as, the bikes started evolving and getting better and, suspension was better, there was more power. The tracks are changing, like the game was just constantly changing throughout those years. And, for me, it was, I was 16, 17, 18 years old, I was young and dumb. So I'm still, just, if I hold the throttle wide open, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to crash, dummy, and it took me a long time to really completely change my riding style. And I think honestly where that happened was, being able to go overseas. Like I said, I got to do some enduros in France. I got to do some enduros with some great teams up in Canada, down in South America. And honestly, I attribute a lot of that riding to what changed my game in motocross. You're forced to pace yourself, relax, think a little bit more, and it does become more of a mental game. And I definitely think it took me stepping into enduro for a little bit to really find my footing with motocross again. I was thrown for a loop getting in there with those girls that had been, running at the front for so long. And, there was nothing, like I said, there's nothing they couldn't do on a quad. They were just so badass in every way. And when I came after a few years of going overseas and doing those enduros, I was a changed racer at that point. So that's when I really started upping my game in motocross.
So what year did you finally get that gold trophy?
It was 2012, and that was my last year at nationals. I had come off an injury in 2011, August 2011. I was racing Pont de Vaux in France. Injured myself pretty bad there. Came home and said, I'm about done, with this. I don't want to keep hitting the ground anymore. I've hit the ground too many times, and I'm ready to go home to my family. My family was in Arizona. I couldn't stand being away from them anymore. So it was kind of those, we're either winning a title or that's it. And I trained twice a day. I was in the gym constantly. I changed my diet. Learned a ton more about bike setup. I was always in the shop. I was always, shoulder to shoulder with the mechanic, trying to learn new things. And we were just able to finally put together a good season with not too many crashes and get, a handful of wins under our belt. And that was the year it all came together.
Wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah, it was fun.
How'd you like Pont de Vaux?
I loved it. I got to go there. I went to France twice, raced Pont de Vaux once. Man, it's an experience. Like anybody that races motocross, enduro, works, whatever it is, like you've got to go over to France. The fans are insane. You know, they had concerts after the race, and it was just super, super impressive, you know, to see how they put racing on a pedestal over there. And it was just really cool to be a part of that and experience that over there.
Yeah, I loved it. I've been over there quite a few times.
Yeah. It's pretty fun.
My two favorite races that I'll ever talk about is Rendezvous and Vegas to Reno.
Vegas to Reno. Yeah. Gosh, my dad did that. And that was one of the ones that he didn't want me to do either. It's just too long. And I guess him being away from me and not knowing what was going on out there was one of the ones that worried him. So, but Rendezvous, he didn't really have a choice with that one. I got the call. There was a team that asked me to come over. And the first time I went to France to race, I was 18 years old. And I was at home in Arizona visiting family, got the call. And they said, can you get to France tomorrow? We got you a ticket. And again, 18 years old, called my mom and dad. They were at work. And I was like, hey, I got invited to go race in France. I think I really want to do it. They were like, man, it's pretty cool. You know, when do you go? It was like tomorrow at 10 a.m. You know, I thought they were going to reach through the phone and slap me. But those are the kind of things that would pop up during my racing career that are like, you know, are you ever going to calm down? Are you ever going to, you know, give us a break? And the answer was no at the time. It was kind of like a suck it up, mom and dad, this is what we're doing. And, but they supported it, you know, even when times got tough for them and it was hard, or, you know, I called them overseas and told them, you know, hey, I went down, I'm not doing too well. I think I hurt myself. And they handled it pretty well. So definitely couldn't have made it through the sport without their full support, for sure.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
The story that you get from mom and dad, I'm sure would differ a little, because they had to live the fear. I mean, you're a mom now, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They make jokes all the time that, you know, my daughter is their revenge for me, you know, and the first time she straps on a helmet and throws her leg over a bike, you know, how am I going to feel? And my answer is always, well, she's not going to, you know, I'm not going to have her race, but I can already see her, you know, if she sees old pictures of me racing, or, you know, she questions it. She asks about it. And I'm like, all right, you know, I can't hide, you know, what I did, you know, for most of my life. So I know there's going to be a point in time where she, you know, I probably do end up behind a gate with her. To be completely honest, I hope she doesn't, just because, like I said, I've hit that ground so many times. I don't want to see her, you know, get ragdolled like that. But at the same time, that sport gave me a ton of great opportunities. I will always love it. It always has a piece of my heart. So if she finds her way to it, I know it'll give her a great life. So
have you thought about getting in a cage?
I have. I would love to. I think when I moved back to Arizona, everything just changed. You know, it was, you know, time to lock in and get a real job, so to speak. And, you know, it was a few years later, I had myself a family. So, but I would, you know, if the opportunity presented itself, hell yeah, I would hop into a cage. With age comes a cage, right? So
easy. You know, I have white hair and I still don't get in a cage.
I know. You know, I made that joke when my dad stopped riding and he got himself a sand car. So we go out to Glamis sand dunes a lot. And he was like, I can't ride these quads anymore. It's just my joints can't take it. My bones can't take it. I got to get into a new car. So he got himself an 800 horsepower sand car, which nowadays I realize 800 horsepower isn't much, but at the time, you know, it felt like a rocket ship to us. And that's where I really fell in love with, okay, I don't have to ride anymore, but if I can drive one of these things or drive a truck or a car or anything like that, that would be a dream come true. So,
well, it's easier on the body.
Oh, yeah.
And all of your mind skill set that you have from riding the ATV rolled over into, you know, you're driving a car instead of riding it. It's kind of the same. I mean, it's not the same, but it's, you got some experience, so it helps.
Yeah. The concept's the same, you know, and, you know, I see a ton of motocross riders, you know, both from the ATV world and the two-wheel side of things that are, you know, in trucks now or in side-by-sides, and they're doing amazing. You know, I look at Hunter Miller and Cody Miller, even one of the latest ones, Carson Parrish, he's out there in a pro light truck, just absolutely handling business. So I think the skills definitely translate when you get into a cage for sure.
Yeah, I believe it will. Wes Miller just won his class in Vegas to Reno on ATV.
Yep, absolutely.
He was pretty good on a quad.
Yeah, he's damn good.
Did you ever do any motorcycle stuff?
No, not really. When I first started riding, my cousins had dirt bikes, and I would hop on his every now and then, but I just really fell in love with four wheels. That was just where it was at for me. And once I started on ATVs, it was just kind of I never looked back. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of training methods did you use when you were racing the nationals?
Yeah. So motos were the main thing. Two 20-minute motos a day, or however long it could last in the heat. And then it was just a ton in the gym. I was a big runner. So, I'd go out. I know a lot of guys do the cycling or road bikes, but running was the way I kept my cardio up. I stayed away from any heavy weights just because I realized, that causes crazy, crazy arm pump. So just a lot of natural body weight training, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, lunges, things like that. But a lot of back exercises, motocross racing just tears your lower back up. So just anything I could do to keep that lower back strong I was a fan of. So yeah.
Any stretching programs, things like that you could pass on some secrets for anybody else to use?
It was weird. I know a lot of racers dabble in it now, but before yoga got really big, I was always against it. I'm like, how the hell is yoga supposed to help me go race a 400-pound machine? But gosh, it really did. The stretching and the strength that you build doing yoga was a huge help. So about once a week or so, I would do about an hour to 90 minutes of yoga just to help with everything. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. You don't think of, different, things like yoga and running and, I would even do exercises. I'd turn the fuel off on my bike, hop on and sit there and do the throttle and the clutch for, 10 minutes just to make sure that my hands and my thumb could keep up with a moto. So many weird exercises that, that the average person wouldn't think to do. But as a motocross racer, you have to do those weird, unique things to make sure that, every muscle is being worked out. So
I heard a story about Doug Gust where he would do his motos on his track. And then there was an uphill to his garage where he kept his quad, and he would do his moto and then push his quad up the hill to the garage every time.
Yep. That was a part of it too. Gosh, I didn't even think about that. We would push the bikes around the track. Gosh, I hated that. I'd be yelling and cussing the entire time. We're out there in the dead heat of summer. It's humid. It's hot. We just want to go inside. Just finished up a moto, and here we are pushing a bike crazies around the track. But that's what it took, and there are those racers that have had to push their bikes across the finish line. So I never wanted to get caught in a moment where if I needed to push my bike anywhere, I couldn't do it. So you have to be prepared for everything.
Exactly. And it's a strange thing to get prepared for, but everybody knows the one time you're not ready, what's going to happen.
And you're going to need it. Absolutely.
If you could think back on the day or the race that sticks in your mind the most with a competitor that, really you and that person rubbed each other the wrong way, what race would it be, and maybe what competitor it is? Or on the other hand, what race was it, and maybe that you guys were just really good friends as well?
Yeah. Gosh, I would say, so there's two that really come to mind. Susan Parker and I, we got along great. We were both very, very aggressive riders. So when we got together on the track, we're just knocking the crap out of each other. And Nerf bars got put to good use when her and I would come together. And I remember specifically, I think it was Muddy Creek. Her and I had it out on the racetrack. I mean, just every corner, we're slamming into each other and hitting each other. But it was one of the most fun races I've ever had. And, when we're coming off the track, we're high-fiving and thumbs upping. And I'm like, man, that's what it's about, rubbing is racing. And sometimes you do just have to get really, really aggressive, in order to cross the finish line first. And to be able to experience that with somebody that had the same mindset, like, hey, move or I'm going to move you. That was fun. And I loved every bit of that race with her. Two, I know Samantha Cheatham and I raced together in 2012, the first half of 2012. And same thing, she was aggressive. And, if she felt like you were in her way, she had no issue giving you a little love tap. And I love that. I would absolutely do that to somebody. And so I appreciated it, when a racer would try to knock me out of their way. I'm like, yeah, if I'm holding you up, I'm not moving. So you're going to have to move me. So those were the funnest races. The most aggressive races for me is where I had the best time.
That's awesome. How did you end up in those two races?
There were some, I want to say the race with Susan, I won, I think. And, but the races with Samantha, we went back and forth, she beat me, several times, and I beat her several times. So, I felt like we were very evenly matched. And, gosh, the nerves that I had and, the anxiety that I had in staging before lining up with her, that I really never knew. You're always confident and you're like, hey, I got this, I'm going to win. But deep down, it was like, shoot, I really better be on my game. If I blow one turn or, case one jump, she's right there within striking distance throughout the entire moto. So, yes, Samantha and I went back and forth a handful of times.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When you stopped racing, were these ladies still racing, or did they, or have they, or are they still racing, or did their careers end? Did you do that?
Yeah, they stopped too. So Samantha, I think Samantha stopped the same year that I did in 2012. And then Susan, she would show up to a couple races here and there. I know she's still very much involved in, sorry, you can hear my daughter in the background. She is, like I said, still very involved with different things. I don't know if she's been on a racetrack in quite some time. But yeah, I think we all hung up the helmets around the same time.
Wow. That's kind of crazy that a group of fast people all stop at the same time. Usually it's a couple years apart from one another.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, I think with women, it's, especially with all of us being, pretty close in age, we tend to stop a little bit earlier than the guys. We want to have families and, do different things. So I, just kind of the trends that I've seen is, the girls tend to hang up the boots a little bit earlier. And I know, Samantha had a kid, as soon as she stopped racing. I had a daughter a couple years later. So yeah, just life changes,
You spoke of your other half, and is he involved in racing, or is it just something that he gets to listen to the stories?
He hears the stories. So he actually never got to see me race. He hears about it. He's seen pictures, but he gets the different Adrienne, come home from work and make dinner and take care of the baby kind of Adrienne. So thankfully he got the mellow, calm side of me, but he was not in racing. He played college football, and he's actually a boxer. So kind of in a different extreme sport, if you will. But he was very successful with the sports that he was in. So even though it wasn't racing, we can both relate to each other. We both had a passion, huge passion for the sports that we were in. And he actually still boxes. So he actually has a fight on October 25th. So I find my adrenaline rush through him now.
Wow.
So he's training with his dad, and, watching him put so much effort into the sport that he loves, that that makes me just as happy as if I was to go back to racing. So
You need to reach back out to us and let us know how that goes.
I will. Hopefully I'm reaching out with good news.
Well, I hope so too.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I get to meet somebody that not everybody knows something super special about them, or the trials and tribulations in their life where they've done something or been through something. And you have a story that really, in the little brief amount that I got to read about, has touched my heart. And I would love it if you would elaborate on it for everyone, if you're willing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell us what happened in your words and how it all went down, so that I don't botch it. I want everybody to hear it from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just preface it with this. I get very choked up when I get through this story, just because of the little boy that I'm about to speak about. So if you hear me get shaky, my apologies.
Well, my eyes are already watering, and I haven't heard the whole story yet.
So kind of a long story. I'll try to keep it short, but I'd moved back home to Arizona, so I was no longer racing nationals. I was still racing in Arizona, still racing in California, kind of back to my home roots, if you will. But still very much involved, still race, a couple weekends every month, still very involved in training. My nephew was racing motocross at the time. He was a little boy. I don't even remember how old he was, maybe 8 or 9. And my sister had heard about this little boy's story. His name was Logan Carson. Had heard about his story through some mutual friends at work. And it started with, hey, there's a little boy who's sick. He needs help with medical expenses. Let's set up a fundraiser at some of the races that we were still going to. And, we know that the racing community, they're very big at, helping, people and, setting up fundraisers and stuff like that. So my sister thought, hey, what a great idea. Let's set up some fundraisers at the races, my races, my nephew's races. So she started that, and she had the opportunity to meet this little boy and his family and invited them out to one of my nephew's motocross races. So the only thing I knew about his story was, he was at 7 years old. He was born healthy. At 7 years old, he got sick. He got strep throat. I kind of butcher what happened to him medically. His mom can explain it very well, but he ended up turning into sepsis. He went into septic shock. And it's kind of funny. They call it, the day that he went into septic shock, they call it D-Day in their family. And it was July 14th, 2012. That was the day I won my title at nationals at Unadilla, New York. So wanted to throw that out there just to show, we were on very different paths at that time. Fast forward a couple of years, I meet this little boy at the racetrack at my nephew's race. He's gone through hell and back, almost lost his life. It's a miracle that he was even alive. Through going into septic shock, his body basically started sacrificing his limbs to save his organs. So he ended up getting his right leg amputated. They took his right eye. He lost several fingers. He looks like a war veteran. I mean, honestly, his skin, where his skin started dying, it looks like he has burns all over his arms. They had to rotate his scalp to be able to do the proper skin grafting over his eye. So again, this kid's been through hell and back, ended up going into kidney failure. So he got placed on dialysis, and was on the waiting list to receive a kidney. So he had a donor going through the process with Mayo Clinic, and she was actually denied. She wasn't a match for him. So fast forward, November 2nd, 2014, we're at my nephew's race. I see Logan and his family out there, and I'm just in awe of this kid, because here's a kid that, has had nothing but, it seems like, bad luck, thrown his way. Has had to relearn how to walk, had to relearn how to read, after losing his eye. And he walks up to my nephew's bike and says, "Hey, I'm going to rub my good luck on your bike," with his missing fingers and, his burns on his skin. And I'm sitting there like, "You're good luck." From what I hear, you've been unlucky, if anything. But his attitude and his spirit, I mean, he's just bopping around the racetrack, happy as can be. His prosthetic legs got dust all over it and he couldn't be happier. And, again, here he is telling my nephew that he's going to pass on some of his good luck. And in that moment, it was a defining moment for me. I realized, like, man, this kid's 7 years old. He's been through everything, that you could possibly think of medically. And he's just happy as can be. He does it with a smile on his face. He doesn't ask for help from anybody. And in that moment, I realized that I had a different purpose in life than what I had been doing. And I was single at the time. I didn't have a kid. I had a family that had supported me through years of motocross racing. I knew they would get on board with it. I told his mom that I wanted to be his kidney donor, if I was a match. And his family thought I was freaking crazy. His dad, to their defense, they had been through handfuls of people that, "Oh, we'll do it and we'll be there for you every step of the way." And, when it came down to, "Hey, let's get started testing," they backed out. No one wanted to do it. So his dad was like, for lack of a better word, "This girl's full of shit. She's just another one that, is saying she wants to do it. She's not going to do it." 2 days later, his mom reached out to me on Facebook and she asked me, she said, "Hey, were you serious about what you said at the racetrack the other day?" And I said, 100%. Why? She said, "We need a donor. Our son's dying. Do you want to start testing?" And the next day I was at a lab getting my blood drawn. That was the first step in the process. We were compatible as far as blood matching goes. And we were wide open from there. We started testing at Mayo Clinic about a month later, doing the full testing, doing, kidney scans and EKGs and iothalamate tests and psychological tests, which I can't believe I passed the psych eval, but I did somehow. They assigned a social worker to the case. It was a whirlwind. It's crazy what they put people through to be able to become a donor. And on February 11th, after, a month or two of testing, Logan called me. This is the part where I get choked up. Logan called me after one of his nephrology appointments, and I'll never forget it. His voice was so cute. He was so little, and he was like, "Hey, you're a match. You're approved." And I was like, "What? Put your mom on the phone. What are you talking about?" And I knew that I had been approved from the donor team at Mayo Clinic, but his doctor hadn't approved me yet at Phoenix Children's Hospital. And to hear from him that I was approved, it was just, I broke down. I was driving home from work at the time and I just absolutely came apart. They called the next day to schedule our transplant surgery, which was for March 31st. And March 31st, 2015, we had our transplant. Everything went perfect. I was healthy. Logan was healthy. And we haven't looked back since. He's 15 years old now. He's in high school. He lives about 15 minutes away from me. I talk to his family often. They have gone on camping trips with us. Logan and my nephew created a very close friendship. And that's the part of the story that it gets me every time. And it's because of seeing how strong Logan was. It made me realize that through all my years of racing, everything that I had done, I wasn't strong at all. This kid is what true strength is. And it completely changed my life for the better. So that's where I exited racing, was at that point.
Well, I know you said that you would keep it short, and you did.
I tried. I'm sorry.
Oh, you did great. And there's so much more to this.
Yeah.
You did answer a question that I was going to have is he good? Is he healthy?
Yeah.
He's active, and
He's active. He's smart. He's in, honors classes at school. He started doing sports after that. He was able to have his first sleepover, little things that, kids nowadays take for granted. You don't realize what a blessing it is to be able to have a sleepover with your friend, but being on dialysis, restricts you from that. So after the transplant, we found it very fitting that his first, little sleepover with his friend was actually at my sister's house with my nephew. And they stayed up all night and played video games, and they had the time of their life. So it was pretty amazing.
So I have to ask this question.
Yeah.
How did his dad respond after the surgery to you?
His dad has been amazing for me. He told me his story, about how he thought I was full of it. And I understood, I was like, if I had, been conditioned to being let down and, having people tell you they're going to do something and, not have it come to fruition. That's what I would think of everybody, especially when they were in the midst of watching their son slowly die in front of them. And his dad every time we talk, he always says thank you. And I'm like, hey, there's a point where you've got to stop saying thank you. Your son did more for me than they will ever realize, more than what anyone will realize, and I thank their son just as much as they thank me for my own reasons.
And I get that. There's always a point where maybe the donating to the kidney, yes, it helped him, but it also changed your life and changed your view of the world. And being a father and being blessed like I am in my life to have healthy children and healthy grandchildren, I am blessed in so many different ways. I understand the fears. Maybe I was a little lackluster in with my children in letting my son race as much as I did, and letting my daughter throw a softball till her shoulder came apart. And some people think, well, that's just being a bad parent. Well, the kid wanted to throw the ball, and I wasn't about to tell her no.
Yeah.
I didn't know that her shoulder could come apart like that.
Right.
It did. But what I'm trying to say is, without choking up myself, it's super inspirational that a person or a member of our ATV family would reach out and do something for another human being that's that huge. And I'm in awe. I really am.
I think, when I think of, I appreciate that, by the way, when I think of why I did it, he was right in front of my face. He was right there. I got to, see who I was helping. I got to see the impact that it would have. When I think of anybody, every single person that I've met in the ATV racing community, I feel like if the same opportunity presented itself, they'd pull through and do it. I just had the opportunity, and that's how I look at it. Logan gave me the opportunity to do something much bigger than I could have ever dreamed of. And, I just had to keep my eyes open for that opportunity, but like I said, if a Logan, walked up in front of anybody that I've met in the ATV racing community, I have no doubt in my mind that they would have done the same thing.
And I believe you. I believe in our family. I believe in our group, whether you wear this flag or that T-shirt or run that. We're all one family because we're really not as big an industry as everybody thinks we are.
Yeah. It's very small. I learned that. It is a very small industry. But I think that's what makes us unique. You have the dirt bike side of things where, that's huge. It's much bigger than the ATV racing side. And I think that that family aspect of it gets lost a little bit on that side of it, especially when you get to such a high level. Whereas with the ATV racing community, you turn pro, you still have that same family. You still have the same people supporting you. You're still talking to the same people at the racetrack. And that's what I loved about four wheels versus going to the dirt bike side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to do a little bit of dirt bike stuff, but not a lot. And I still believe that when you go to an ATV race, you know, your worst enemy is still your friend and still part of your family. And if you're in dire straits, whether they like you or not, you know, whether you hang out, they're over there offering their assistance or a part, or, you know, and then you may go have dinner with them and realize that you actually are friends and that
Yeah.
everything's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I love about it. You know, when you line up at the gate, no, we're not friends. You know, like I said before, you know, racing with Samantha, racing with Susan, you know, if you're in the way, Adrienne, you're going to get blown right off a berm, and vice versa. But you know, when the checkered flag waves and we're riding off the track, we're friends again. You know what I mean? And I, you know, I love that part of it. So those are
It's
some
funny.
of the best ways.
When you talk to the older guys, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
The older guys, they hated each other on the track. They're in their 60s now, and they're like, oh, we'll go in the same room with them, but only because I have to.
The rivalry still exists.
Exactly, you know, and that crash was his fault, you know, and that
Right.
and I love listening to him because I'm friends with a lot of the older guys because I was actually a young man learning my trade when they were doing what they were doing. So
Yeah. I think that makes it fun too, though. You know, I'd love to get into a room with, you know, Gary Denton and, you know, Doug Gus and Keith Little and, you know, some of those guys, and just hear about, like, you know, just some of the old races that stick out to them, like that banter back and forth between racers is so much fun.
Well, stay tuned because it's all coming.
I love it. I look forward to it.
That's my goal, and that's the whole reason that ATV-TALK started. Is we all have a story.
Yeah.
And nobody knows them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody knows my stories. Nobody knows your stories. You know, Gary's got stories that he's been telling for 20 years, and it's about time that his fans got to hear some of them.
Yeah.
The same with, you know, I'm still trying to reach out to certain people that I haven't been able to connect with, but I'm getting, you know, I talked to Jimmy White and Marty Hart and Mike Coe. You know, Tracy Dixon was on the show. Paul Turner, the mechanic, he was on the show. His episode just dropped yesterday. And, you know, I reached across the pond to Paul Holmes. And so I'm reaching out to as many people as I can with as many feelers. I mean, Eli Madero got us together so that I could get you on the show.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I'm a huge fan, and I want the stories to be told. And before we get off here, you need to know, I didn't know your story. I knew a little bit about your racing when you were in Southern California because I was at Glen Helen. I had no idea that what we just spoke of was, I still didn't even know how to react. I mean, I'm in awe. I really am. That's a huge thing for a human being to do, is to take a part of their body and allow another human being to live, not only as a woman having a child, but as taking a kidney from yourself that one day you may need for that young boy, that young man, and allowing him to have a life that he wouldn't have without you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think the way I look at it is, I have a lot of amazing people in my life that would have done the same and will do the same for me, you know, if I'm ever in that position, you know, so, paying it forward.
Exactly. And it's a very admirable thing. And wow, I still don't know what to say. I'm a little speechless, and you know, if you know me or know of me, you know, I'm never short of words. So I'm never afraid to just roll it out there, but you got me here. You got me.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to ask you another question, if you don't mind taking a little bit more time with me.
Sure.
is your sister older or younger? And how did she play with the racing, and how did that all work out for you?
The fun memories. Yeah. So she's just almost 6 years older than me.
Wow.
Even though she looks younger than me now, damn it. But she was actually a basketball player. She got a full ride scholarship to a D1 school playing basketball. That was her thing. She was amazing at it. When I first started racing, I sucked at it. I was afraid to jump. I was afraid to get all four tires off the ground. And, I was in first gear going into every corner. She was at the time the more fearless sister. So she rode quads, but, had no desire to race. My dad got the wild idea of, if you're going to do this, you're going to figure out how to go faster. I'm going to put your sister out there with you. So she did. And that's where the competitive juices started flowing. I was like, hell no, this is my sport. This is my thing with Dad. You had basketball. It's my turn. Get off my racetrack.
All right.
And, I honestly credit her for, I want to say, getting out of my own head, getting out of my way. And that's where I started developing some speed. If she can get out here the first time and beat me, I can go a little bit faster. I can jump a little bit higher. And, it only took her maybe 3 or 4 races before I was passing her up. And she's like, all right, my job here is done. And she excused herself from racing. So that was back in the EX 400 days. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And the young man that you are friends with today, Logan?
Yes. Logan Carson.
My grandson is named Logan.
Oh, very cool.
And he was born on April 23rd.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations.
I had my 6th grandchild was born on the 25th of June.
Wow. That's fun. Yeah. My parents are having a lot of fun with grandkids now. And, I think seeing their kids as parents is what's most exciting for them. But yeah, they are having a blast with it. It almost makes me excited to be like, dang, I can't wait to be a grandparent one day. Like, you get all the fun, you get to sugar them up, give them toys, buy them presents, and do all the fun stuff, and then send them home.
Exactly. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
I to my child. I don't right. Find out.
Yeah, they're having a blast with that. So, but congratulations. That's amazing.
Well, young lady, I am honored that you took the time to speak with me.
Thank you.
And I am honored in your presence as far as a human being.
Thank you.
Allowing yourself to go to the next level and do something bigger than yourself and bigger than your sport, and allowing yourself to be forever remembered. And I think that your life is on an amazing path. And I hope that Logan realizes how special you are, and that maybe next time when you and I sit down to talk, you could have Logan with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, he would love that for sure. And I really appreciate it. And definitely thankful for the ability to share my story and share Logan's story.
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored 100%, because like there again, I'm a huge fan, and I love your story, and I love what you've done, and congratulations on your epic career. Pro championship's a pro championship, and they're very hard to come by.
Yes.
One is just as good as 8, so never look at the person that has maybe 1 or 2 more than you and think anything other than the fact, hey, I'm a champion too. I retired.
Yeah.
You retired number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. That was all I needed. One and done.
No matter what you do, when you pick up the jersey, it's got a 1 on it.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's hanging in my house. Yeah. Oh.
I want to thank you again for your time, and please reach out anytime, and we'll get you back on for another episode. I want to know how that your better half or other half's boxing match goes, because I'm a sports fan myself. Racing, boxing, UFC, all of it.
Very cool.
Make sure you reach back out to us, and if there's any changes or anything like that, or any more news, and we'd love to have you back on.
I will. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. I will be in touch with you when your episode's going to air. So until then, keep listening, and thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. We'll talk to you later. The team here at ATV Talk would love your feedback. Please email us at hello@atvtalkpodcast.com.
Duncan Technologies International. More than 33 years in the industry building racing programs and ATVs around the world. We build winners.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, don't forget to rate us on all available platforms and share us with your loved ones. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more ATV Talk news. See you next time.